episode of the Just Trust Me Marketing Podcast. This is the first occasion of this. This is the first live stream show we're doing of this particular episode, or this type of episode. So we're glad to have you all here, whether you're watching this in our live Riverside virtual studio, the link is in the LinkedIn event, or on LinkedIn or YouTube. We're glad you're choosing to spend your time with us today. And we hope you're in a comfy chair. That's very important. You know, anytime you're in therapy, you want to be sitting comfortably as we tackle uncomfortable things sometimes. Some quick intros first for your hosts. I'm going to start with a person across microphones from me, a career content marketer, owner of Italics LLC, and my co-host, Elizabeth Allen. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about yourself briefly. I just gave the super high level stuff.
Yeah. So again, love all things content, love all things words. That is where I live and die. I have an 11-year-old daughter, a husband, 2 cats, and 2 frogs who are right behind me here.
Oh, and are they going to appear? Or we're going to like not see them into the screen or anything probably?
Unfortunately, they are nocturnal, so they are sleeping hardcore right now. And I think that's what my cats are doing as well downstairs. So I think everybody else is being useless and not contributing to the household today.
Well, wouldn't we all want to do that? I mean, I think that's how we all want to spend our time. So I admire their pluck as keeping with that. And then, of course, I'll introduce myself. I'm also a career marketer, owner of But Wait, There's More, and the podcast network of the same name, creator of the Just Trust Me Marketing Podcast, and your host, Rachel Moore. So hello, we're both glad to be with you. In a moment, we're going to bring on today's guest. But first, we wanted to go over some housekeeping items. Today's live stream show, just like any good therapy session, is a safe space to ask questions and feel supported and not feel dumb. We're here to help anyone not feel dumb. Marketing can be super complex, changes every 2 nanoseconds, and it's very difficult to navigate for anyone, particularly if you're even just a normal Joe who's out there saying, "Hey, I want people to go follow me on Threads or TikTok or Instagram." It's difficult. We'll be digging into our guest's marketing challenges for her business, but you might have your own ideas for solving their marketing too. So whether you're joining us, as I said, in our live Riverside studio or on LinkedIn or YouTube, if you have advice and you're like, hey, you're talking about this and I have an idea for you, go ahead and put it in the chat or the comments, and we will incorporate that as we see fit. We also, I want to ask you all, for those of you who are watching and want to partake, do us a solid, contribute to the conversation, but also help us ensure that any trolls or spam get reported. We'll do our best to moderate those as well. We're here to help, right? And as we talked about offline before we started this live stream, there are other places to do that. Not this place. Okay. This is marketing therapy. It's supposed to be doing good. Lastly, please make sure you subscribe to the Just Trust Me Marketing Podcast, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. While we're doing this as a live stream, we will be uploading this as an episode to the show. And we have a lot of things we talk about on that podcast, along with our other co-host, Tanya Ballard-Brown. But let's get into this show. Let us meet today's marketing therapy guest. Really pleased to welcome onto the screen Chelsea Newton of Phases of the Mind Therapy from Colorado. Chelsea, welcome to the show.
Welcome,
Thank
Chelsea.
you so much. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's good to be here.
We're very excited to have you here. And again, thank you for taking the time out of your day. We were just talking, we're not frogs, we're not cats. We don't all get to sleep and nap all day and be pampered by the people around us. But you pamper people, and we want to hear more about that. Can you do a bit more? I just basically gave people your name and your title and your, actually, I didn't even give them your title. Let me toss it over to you before I keep talking. Introduce us to yourself, please, Chelsea.
Yes, so I am Chelsea Newton. That is my name. I am a sex therapist, which is the coolest job on earth, and I think is really confusing to folks. Like, what does that even mean? So, I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Colorado, and that means that I'm licensed and trained to do a lot of things. But I also have a master's of education in human sexuality, and so my training was in clinical sexology. So I'm trained as a sex therapist, but for the past decade have worked really very broadly in public service with children and families, doing like anything and everything you can imagine related to therapy, or anything that could come up in therapy. And so in some ways, I sort of feel like social workers are like a jack of all trades, like in terms of the mental health world. But my private practice, Phases of the Mind Therapy, is a sex therapy practice, and that's really what I focus on.
Excellent. Thank you for giving us that information too. And I just think it's important for everyone to remember as well. If you're not getting the message from the fact that we are talking to a therapist, we all here support therapy. It's great. There's just having you, by virtue of having you here on the show, I think is green light, everybody. Therapy is great for whatever you need it for, including sex. And so I'm really happy that we're welcoming you on. Do you ever? I just want to ask you a question. Like when people learn you are a sex therapist, what kind of reactions do you typically get from people when you first tell them that?
Oh, I mean, I was actually at the dentist this morning and just like having my cleaning, and my hygienist started to have a hot flash, and she was like, I'm so sorry. She's like, I need to stop. I need to turn the fans on. And I was like, it's absolutely fine. I was like, I have a lot of clients going through menopause and perimenopause. I'm like, I'm a sex therapist, and she's been cleaning my teeth for 10 years. And we've talked about my work in schools or in other places, but like, I don't always tell people I'm a sex therapist because I do get a lot of reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, that's amazing. Like, and I have tons of resources around menopause. And I was like, just give me your email. I was like, I will send you stuff. She was like, it's hard to know who to believe. And I was like, these are resources that I have vetted through other therapists I trust and things that my clients have said are useful. And so I will send them to you. So, sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's so great. You like immediately click, people get it. It's like, oh my gosh, can I share this resource with you? And then other times, it's really awkward. It's like crickets. It's like, oh, interesting, kind of like bless your heart kind of vibe. And then other times people are like, oh, so you have sex with clients? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like,
wow.
I think you're really confused about what sex therapy is, but let me help you understand. But because that's not what that is.
Exactly. Well,
so it really runs the gamut.
Yeah, I'm glad we let you talk about that, because I think we just made it clear some things that, look, the more you know. Again, we're not here to make anyone feel dumb. We might laugh, but it's in good spirits because it's like we're all learning together. It's okay, right, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. And I think that that conversation about menopause and perimenopause is something, and we've talked about it on our normal podcast episodes, where like that's not something that's talked about enough. It is something that has kind of been hidden in the background for years and years and years, and women don't know either how to talk about it, how to get information about it. I think it's really important that, and that's not necessarily something you would think about when you think about somebody who's in sex therapy, not realizing that like that's a huge part of it. Like, what is my life after I hit this particular point in my life, and like what can I expect out of it? And we've all been conditioned to just kind of accept that it's an unknown, we're never going to figure it out. So I love that you helped your hygienist with that.
Yes, and it's like it in a lot of ways it is an unknown because there's not enough funding in medicine and mental health and all of these places specifically around women's issues oftentimes. And it's actually like shocking to me. We were talking about this too. I'm like, it's shocking to me that in 2024 we have women who are going through these changes that are just like part of life, and they have no idea what's happening with their bodies. And that's part of what I love to do as a sex therapist, like regardless of what the issue is, whether it's perimenopause, menopause, some other physical symptoms going on, whatever it is. It's like, I love getting people who will come and talk to me about that, because who else can you really talk to about that stuff? I mean, yes, your doctor, if your doctor's cool, if you have a doctor, if your doctor is the same doctor that you see consistently. But for a lot of folks, like, it's urgent care, or it's, I get a new doctor every time I go in, or whatever. And it's like, you don't really want to talk to that person about some of these like really intimate things. So yeah, being a sex therapist is truly the coolest job ever. Like I can't think of a cooler job, frankly.
It's really cool, and glad you're here. And look, we want to help. And I think it's important that we did just talk about all that because we are entering into marketing therapy here. So, Chelsea, we're gonna let you sit in the big overstuffed comfy chair or couch or whatever your jam is when it comes to comfortable seating, where you get to come in and we're going to exert therapy into this session with you because I like that we laid the groundwork for who you help, why it's important, and we'll definitely be digging more into that as we continue the discussion. But the whole goal here is we want to make sure more people know that you're there, that you're out there, that Phases of the Mind therapy is out there to help. And so the reason we call this marketing therapy is we're going to apply some marketing and therapeutically try to see if we can help get some awareness out there for you. So with that, and again, I just want to remind anyone who might be watching or listening live, please feel free to interact in the comments if you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or in the live stream studio. But also, let us know where you're joining from. Phases of the Mind therapy, we're going to talk about this in a moment. You are based in Colorado, which will absolutely figure into this discussion. Chelsea, let's start with challenges. So you are your own business,
Yes.
and anyone who is a solopreneur or solo business owner knows that you're wearing all the hats. Which is absolutely why sometimes it's like, hey, we know you're an exceptional therapist, maybe not a marketer, and you're trying to just carve your way through the best way
What?
you can.
What, Rachel? What's that you say? I'm trained as a sex therapist, not in marketing and sales. Weird.
I mean, aren't you
Who
marketing your,
knew?
yeah, you're like, I can just see you like giving therapy to somebody, be like, and by the way, make sure you follow me on my website. No, you're not gonna not gonna do that.
Well, no, you can't. There's so many ethical and legal restrictions that we also have in the marketing space that I think a lot of other business owners don't have to necessarily navigate,
Yep.
that also make it really, really tricky.
Yeah. Well, and so speaking of that, what are your challenges? Like, we know there's HIPAA, and if those of you who don't know what HIPAA is, I believe is HIPAA is the acronym. Is that correct?
I get it wrong every time. I Google it every time.
It's not
Okay.
hippo
All
with
I
an A.
remember is it's not hippo,
Yes.
and that's what makes me realize it's the 2 A's, not the 2 P's.
That's actually a great trick. I'm going to adopt that.
Yes.
Because I kind of wish it was hippo, but it's not.
It would be a lot easier to remember for sure.
How I remember it.
But yeah, for anyone who wonders, and we'll put a link in the show notes. But HIPAA is essentially it's that, I think it's Health Information Portability something
Privacy Act. Yes.
Thank you. You got it right more than me. See, this is why you know this more than we do. But it is a restriction saying it's not like Chelsea can go and, hey, I just talked to someone, one of my patients, and they recounted this situation to me. And then you go share that on social media, like, oh my God, I helped them so much. I'm so awesome. You can't do that. But okay, HIPAA aside, what are some of your challenges that you're encountering when it comes to marketing your services, your business to your target clients?
Yes, that's a great question. I think for me, the biggest thing is just people finding me. It really is the visibility. I've spent a lot of time, money, energy investing in SEO, understanding copy, right? Like the story brand framework, right? Like some of these like marketing things I'm not totally unfamiliar with. I mean, I've had my practice for 5 years. I've really worked hard to build my skills around marketing, although I would still say that they are in their infancy. I think that this is a huge field that I'm like, in the baby stages of. It's like I'm 10 years into a career as a therapist. It's like in terms of mental health, it's like, yeah, I got some chops, but in terms of marketing, it's like I'm still learning. And so I think the biggest challenge for me is just people finding me. It's like when people find me, I have no problem converting clients. When somebody is able to meet with me like this, I am a telehealth provider and we do what I call a vibe check. It is so unusual that I would not then take that person on as a client.
Nice.
So, when somebody finds me and books that vibe check and we are able to connect, it's great. It's amazing. However, the challenge that I have is like a lot of people can't find me.
Mm.
And, you know, the SEO piece is one of the things that I've really worked on. And my website certainly has improved over the last 5 years, thank God. And my numbers are up always, like month after month, my numbers are up, but it's like people from all over the world. It's not necessarily people in Colorado. And I can only serve clients who reside in the state of Colorado per my licensure. And social workers are unique in that we don't have an interstate compact agreement like some other mental health providers where you can be licensed in multiple states. I can't do that yet. It's coming, but I can only see clients in Colorado. So I'm very limited in terms of who can I even offer my services to.
Right.
Now, do you normally do in person, or do you do like Zoom sessions? What's the percentage?
I do 100% telehealth in my
100%
private
telehealth.
practice.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So at least it's all of Colorado. That gives you a
Yes.
little bit of a
Nice.
better audience, but that's really interesting. I would not have even thought about what you're legally allowed to, who you're legally allowed to provide services to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what socials are you on currently?
Huh, great question. I'm really not. And
Okay.
so I think that's, you know, the most obviously huge gap. I did dabble in Instagram for a minute back in 2020, 2021 when I started my practice. And I do have one video up on YouTube that's also on my website. And I actually have no idea how many views that has, but probably not very many, like less than 50, I would say. And I'm on LinkedIn. I have a huge professional network. I would say that's the other thing that is like goes really well for me. Like
Yeah.
almost all of my business is word of mouth referrals. I have been serving children and families in Denver for a decade. My colleagues trust me. They know the work that I do. And so that is how I get most of my business.
Okay.
But really, I'm just on like LinkedIn. And that's really mostly professionals, not people who are going to be coming in as sex therapy clients. And I have a really old, outdated Instagram page that has like nothing on it, essentially. And then my website. That's
Gotcha.
really it.
Gotcha.
Facebook at all?
You know,
Just
Facebook.
because I know that's like a more local, that's
Yeah, so I have a Facebook for my business, but I got locked out of Facebook like 2 years ago, and it requires me a credit card to go back in. And I just think it's so sketchy. And like, I
Yeah.
don't think they're actually going to charge me, but like, I don't know. I have such an aversion to social media, which is certainly a challenge.
Yeah.
Because I also just don't have time.
yeah. So they locked
Time,
you out of
time is
Facebook,
actually
but
my
not
other big
Instagram now?
challenge.
Yeah.
They locked you out of Facebook, but not Instagram?
No, not locked out of Instagram. I'm locked out of Facebook.
Interesting. Usually
I can
now
relate.
you get locked out of both.
Hey, I can relate with this actually. It's super annoying. I'm not locked out of Facebook, but I am locked from advertising, and they won't tell me why.
Oh,
I actually, and
oh.
I even paid, ooh, I paid to get Meta verified. I am Meta verified, and I reached out, which allegedly is supposed to like get me, ooh, now you get help because you can't find Facebook help. And I had them look into it, and they're like, well, we can't tell you why. We just know, and there's arbitrarily you're just restricted from advertising. You can have like a friend advertise for you. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm literally trying to give you money, and
Helpful.
it's
What?
I know. So understanding. So you do have Instagram, not Facebook, because Mark Zuckerberg in his infinite wisdom has decided you shouldn't have it. But
Mhm.
good to know. And I like that Elizabeth, you're asking about kind of the things you're doing currently. Let's circle up on that. So you're not really big on social. You do have Insta, have a video on YouTube, great on LinkedIn, big network there. Referral marketing is getting you some good traction as far as like that's a good way of inbound. That's great.
Mhm, mhm.
You're working on SEO to the best of your ability, which is great. Um, do you do any in-person networking as you're able, again, understanding we know that your sessions are telehealth, but are you able to get out in person to any networking stuff?
Yes, and that's something I've really worked on over the past year, especially. So, I have done really fun events with like local LGBTQ community organizations. I did like sex therapy bingo with their age 50 plus group just like a couple months ago, which was such a blast. We busted myths and I gave out prizes, and that was so fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anytime I can get in front of the queer community, because I do primarily work with queer adults in my practice, as well as people who have experienced sexual trauma, that's just so exciting to me. And
Yeah.
so I love being in community. I love getting out to those spaces. Just having some fun, busting myths is just great. And yeah, just connecting with folks. So yeah, I do try to do some of that stuff. I also have like a big therapist networking group in Colorado that I'm part of. And it's so interesting. We do some virtual events and we do some in-person events, and all of our issues are so similar in
Yeah.
terms of our marketing and like how we're getting clients through the door. And it's one of those fields where I don't ever really know the trends. It's like you could really
Right.
only rely on like the word of mouth of others. Like,
Mhm.
hey, like how many referrals did you get last month? Or how many referrals are
Yeah.
you having right now? Oh, does it seem slow to you? And it's like, it's all over the place. And so I actually try really hard to like just try to focus on what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do connect with a lot of other therapists
Yeah.
often.
Gotcha.
And not to rainbow wash anything, but what is your strategy, your marketing strategy around Pride? Like, is there something you do specifically in June? Events you attend specifically in June to try to get that out there?
No, I mean, I always go to Pride because I'm also
Pride
queer
is
and
fun. Yeah,
Pride
Pride
is
is
the best.
fun.
Like
Yeah,
Pride is like it's like Christmas for us,
yeah,
it's like amazing in so many ways.
yes.
Um, and this year I actually thought about like how do I even just have like stickers with a QR code that I can give
Mm-hmm.
people to put on their water bottles, or like my husband and I were talking about like do we do t-shirts with like QR codes where it's like something like sex therapy is like pretty not it's not controversial, but it's like intriguing. Like people
Yeah.
always want to know more. They're like, oh, like what does
Absolutely.
that mean? Or like what does she do? And then it just like never came to fruition because again, time. But yeah, that's like a huge thing where it's like, oh, you know,
See, looking at your website, one of your headlines is you support baby queer and questioning LGBTQIA plus community members. And so I know, again, I don't want to rainbow wash, but Pride is such an important time of the year. And those are the people you're going to get who are like tentatively being like, I'm going to attend maybe as an ally, and not really, not necessarily come out or be
Mm-hmm.
really, really say that
mhm,
this is what I know I am, but they need your services. So I love the idea of doing, stickers with QR codes for the water bottles. I mean, everybody wants a sticker for their water bottle. That's just normal. I think that would be a great time. And I know it feels like it's kind of shouting into the void
Mm-hmm.
during June because there's so much else going on, but
mhm,
your services are so unique and so needed in that community at that time that
mhm.
I think if you were to really crack down and be like, okay, what are we gonna do three things for Pride? We're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
maybe I'm gonna go on to some like on even onto if you can get back into Facebook and be like, I'm gonna go on to some local Pride events and talk that I'm say that I'm gonna be there, maybe have a tent. I think that's really important. And I know, that is, this is a conversation that has to happen year round. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just a June event, but
Sure.
that's when you're going to have more access to the people who might need your services. I think that would be really important. So even if you just commit to doing one thing during Pride. Like, don't
Mhm,
overextend yourself. You are super busy. I absolutely understand that. But if you're like, I'm going to, yeah, walk around a Pride event that I'm going to be at already because it's fun, it's
mhm,
Pride, and hand out a sticker, a t shirt, whatever, like that alone will help. And that will also garner commitment and support from the community as well, which is, as we know in marketing, huge. I mean, it
Right.
incorporates it continues what you were saying about a lot of it is word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So
mhm,
that's, that it's not necessarily worrying about social, especially if that's not something you're big into and something you just don't have time for to constantly be focusing on, just like a
mhm.
once a year thing. I would I would think you would see a lot of benefit from that.
I want to this actually segues well too into a couple questions we want to ask about, because Elizabeth, you just referred to this. We mentioned you're a solopreneur, but I want to ask about your resources. Do you have anyone else in your team or anyone that does try to kind of help support, and whether it's directly with marketing or supporting you while you're trying to do the marketing? Who do you have that you're able to tap into?
Um, That's a great question. So a couple of things, I mean, I know I keep referring to time, but also I think it's important to just note that, I work as a school social worker as well,
Right.
licensed in the Colorado Department of Education as a school social worker. So during the school year, I'm crazy. And in the summer, it's like I actually put all my time into my
Mhm.
business.
Yep.
And that cycle's about to end because this is my last school year. And
Oh,
so, like, I'm about to have time. And so I know I keep saying time is a barrier now, but when we're really thinking about, like, how can we help market my practice, let's just pretend that I have 40 hours a week minimum to work in my practice, which right now I don't. I have like
right.
10.
Right.
And so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
In terms of support, I currently have a team of virtual assistants who are amazing and who do creative and socials, and they really want me to be on TikTok. They're like, please, for the love of God, like, you are so engaging. People will love you. You have to be on TikTok. And I'm like, yes, as soon as the school year ends, I will get on TikTok. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I just right now can't.
Sure. Sure.
Uh, and so they're really helpful. Like, they help with some of the back end stuff of my website. They're working on things right now. I have all these lead magnet ideas that I've been building over the years that I never have time to actually like get out into the world. And so, like,
Mhm.
they're working on getting those live on my website. So I'm really building my email list.
Right.
And so I'm really, really grateful to have them on my team. I also enlist my husband to do some admin stuff that is absolutely not client facing at all. Like, that's the other thing too. It's like nobody can really have access to my client stuff. Of
Mhm.
course, like, if I had somebody doing my scheduling and stuff, like, that's different. And there's all these agreements, but I don't have that. And so, he sends out the requests for Google My Business reviews, which is like another thing that I have found to be helpful in terms of marketing. And uh, I can't ask clients to give me reviews. It's not ethical. We can't do that. That's like a big
Right.
no-no in our field. And so it has to come from other colleagues. But anyway, he helps with some stuff like that. So really it's just me, my team of VAs, and then, like, my husband when there's like really minor little like email type stuff that I'm like, hey, do this please, or
Okay.
compress these images for my blog post in Canva. Like, he does that stuff
Yep.
for me, thank God.
Nice. And then I wanted to ask Elizabeth, did you have a question about current resources? I was going to move to target audience, but I wanted to see if
I
you.
was just going to say, so you did say that you have a really good professional network. Would you even consider what we're doing here, either doing like podcast episodes or live stream episodes with some thought leaders in your networking community? Is that something you would ever consider doing it? I
I
know
would
it takes
love
a little
that.
bit more time, but given the fact that you said some time might be opening up for you, something like that where you're kind of, I feel like when you deal with these thought leaders in your network, it kind of spiders out.
Yeah,
And now I know you can only work within Colorado, and you said hopefully that changes soon, but I could see how that would build a bigger name for yourself. And that would also help if you were to be able to get to the point of I'm a TikTok proponent all day long, especially given what you do, like
I
that
know.
people would be fascinated that the numbers you would get on that would be off the charts. But yes, it just takes the time. But would you be able to do either start a podcast or do like live stream video events, even if it's just on LinkedIn, to try to build up that network and incorporate those thought leaders to just show that, like, look, I know what I'm talking about. Like, clearly, look at all of the resources I have around me, something like that. But I know a lot of that comes down to when you actually have the time.
Well, and it's interesting. I think when I think about a podcast, which by the way, I'm like very new in the podcast world as a consumer, even like I really never ever listen to, I have one podcast that I always listen to, and they don't put episodes out very consistently. But
What
when
is
they
it?
do, I'm like, thank God. It's Maintenance Phase. Shout out Maintenance
Oh my
Phase.
God,
They're
I
my
love
favorite ever.
Maintenance Phase is my favorite podcast ever.
It's so good. But, I think of this like really highly produced, like almost like journalist type stuff. That's the kind of stuff I gravitate toward. But, when you're saying, would I be willing to get on with my network? It's like, I can't tell you the amount of networking calls that I hold with other mental health professionals, other school professionals, educators, dietitians, et cetera, where I'm like, God, we should have recorded that. Oh my God, we should have recorded that. And so even just being here today and seeing sort of this in terms of the live stream, I'm like, I should be doing this every time I'm on a networking call, no matter what, because the conversations that I have on networking calls on a weekly basis, I meet with some of the most amazing providers in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're saying you think that's worth something? Like, I don't know. I think that's my hesitation. I'm like, who's going to listen to that? Like, what does that even, I don't get that.
Chelsea, think of it this way. There are people out there. There are millions of people who subscribe to videos of people. I could eat my lunch into my microphone right now and just make them noises, and people are millions of people subscribing to that. Or I could go play a video game and just play it, and tons of people are going to watch it. There's an audience for everything.
Well, I mean, Chelsea, even look at Maintenance Phase. That's a pretty niche topic, right? Like, that's when I try to explain to people, I actually was at Target like 3 weeks ago, and somebody walked out with a Maintenance Phase t-shirt, and I felt like I had found my people. But it's such a niche topic. You're like, we're literally listening to a podcast about like the wellness and weight loss industry and how messed up it is. That's really niche, right? You've got sex on your side.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So that makes it far more interesting. And I feel like people would be like, I think you get that, like you said, you have people all the time who are like, not sure what you do. They're really interested in it. Those are the people who are going to be listening to it to be like, what the fuck does this chick do? She's a sex therapist? What does that mean? You get those people. And that's even far more interesting than talking about like wellness and the weight loss industry. I think if you think about your one favorite podcast, it's kind of in the same, like, it's the same vein. It's the same level of like niche topic that in your head, you'd be like, who the fuck is listening to this? You're listening to it. I'm listening to it. Like, look at us both. We're like, yeah, oh my God.
Oh my God. If I saw somebody in real life with a Maintenance Phase t-shirt, I would totally fangirl. I'd be like, oh my God. Oh my God. You know what I love.
When you said Maintenance Phase, did you see my reaction? Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Like and I think that's what builds up that community is because it feels so niche. It feels like this is for me. Right? This is something that I love. And a lot of people don't love it. I mean, but if you look at Maintenance Phase numbers, I'm sure they're huge. Same exact thing. It's a topic that you think only you're interested in. And that builds that community and that almost like brand loyalty because look at our reaction to it.
But think of it this way too. You just mentioned something, and I'm going to keep us on track here too, because I know, therapy sessions, we only have so much time. We don't want to get to the point where like, well, that's all the time we have.
That's going to be on you guys today. Because if this was my side, I'd be like, okay, this is what I say. I'm mindful of our time.
I'm so using this at the end. Just wait.
That's what I said. I'm mindful of our time. I'm curious to know, what would you like to take with you away from our session together today?
Okay. I'm not going to repeat that verbatim, but I am in a little bit. But all right. Just pivoting off what Elizabeth just mentioned, you don't need a gigantic audience though. You need the right audience. And so let's talk about that. So if you could paint a picture for us today of your ideal client, what would that person look like? How old would they be? What's their sexual identity or state of mind around that? Just what phase of life are they in? Tell us about that person.
Yeah. So my ideal client is like 20 to 35, maybe even 40. And I work with folks who are older than that, but we're saying ideal, like 20 to 30, queer or questioning, maybe came out and it didn't go so well. And now we're trying to figure out how we're going to do that again. We've relocated, we've got a different support network. Um, or like really scared, really, really
Mm,
scared. A lot of the clients that come to me are so, so scared. It's like, hey, I'm in this relationship and I think I'm happy, but sometimes I'm really wondering if this is what I want. Is it, do I want to date somebody of another gender? That's really overwhelming. How do I tell my family? How do I talk to my partner about this?
mm,
I work with folks who are married and have kids and who are going to come out and are like, I'm
mhm,
about to blow up my life and I need support. And it's like,
mm.
yes, please come to me. I will support you every step of the way. This is possible.
Yeah.
You know, there are ways to navigate this. And so for me, it's like that is my favorite type of client to work with.
Nice. Nice. Excellent. All right. And then, Elizabeth, any quick questions you have about the target audience? I have one more question to ask before we start getting into start prescribing some stuff.
No, I
But
think you're good.
okay. Um, let's imagine that your marketing challenge is solved magically.
Great.
And it's all things are taken care of. What does success for your business look like once that's achieved? Like what is your ideal state that you'd like to be in for your business?
It's so simple. What I want is so simple. And this is what gets me on marketing. I'm like,
Okay.
marketing is so complicated to me, but what I want is so simple and straightforward. I need 15 clients a week at my full fee consistently. That's
Hmm.
it. That's it. That's all I need.
Yeah.
15 clients a week. That's not a lot of people, right?
Right.
But again, it's the right people who can also afford the services. And that is
Hmm.
hugely, hugely challenging because I also
Yeah.
don't accept insurance and I
Hmm.
won't because I've worked in public service for 10 years and I am not interested in contracting with the government for
Right.
many, many reasons, or the healthcare industry at large. And so that's a huge challenge and that's a huge barrier. And so it's like, how am I going to not only find this niche of people, which by the way, I also work with a lot of people who've experienced sexual abuse or sexual trauma. That's
Yeah.
another population that I really love to work with, which sometimes there is overlap, right, in the two populations that I specialize in, but not always.
Yeah.
Um, but because I don't take insurance, it's like I can find a lot of those people, but then cost becomes an issue. And
Gotcha.
that's really, really challenging.
Gotcha. Elizabeth, any other questions you want to ask around that?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. I'm going to pause there because we have had some comments come in, and that's where I want to make sure we're listening to, people. And by the way, I am going to give a huge shout out right now to Liesl Leary Perez, who is
Hmm.
one of our fans watching right now,
Thank
listening
you,
right now.
Liesl. Hi, Liesl.
That's right. Thank you, Liesl. This was actually Liesl's brainchild because Liesl, I've worked with her at a couple different companies. And you talk about somebody who marketer has come into and really catapulted a whole spectrum of help, mental health support
Yes.
in the state of Colorado. And she says she loves us. Thank you, Liesl, in the comments. But she's the one who said, "Hey, why don't you do a live stream show? You're good at that." And people like Chelsea need marketing help. I'm like, "Oh my god, okay." So,
And
and of
again, a
course,
networking thing. Liesl hosted a therapist appreciation night, and I was like, wow, look at this amazing person doing this amazing work. I went, she fed
mhm,
me. I got a little plant, which actually I keep in my kitchen. It says, growth takes time. I look
mhm,
at it all the time. Thank you, Liesl. And it's like, yeah, it's like I do go do those things in person for that
mhm,
exact reason. It's like I want to connect with my community of people who are doing great work with integrity.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, and Liesl has offered up her own ideas. And so we're going to let's segue into like some things that we think are actionable for you to start trying. And I'll mention this again at the end, but we're going to give you the transcript of this afterward because, some of this might be hey, let's start doing some of this stuff now, maybe wait and scale it later. But we're certainly going to give you those, what do you want to take away with you today? But Liesl had mentioned, so you brought up sex therapy bingo. So I'm going to lead off this what do we do next kind of thing with Liesl's comments. She dumped some ideas right here into the chat, so into the comments on LinkedIn. So creating a quiz that could turn into a lead funnel, where what's your sexual communication style, a personality quiz that helps individuals understand how they communicate their sexual desires and boundaries. What's your erotic blueprint, a quiz designed to help
Mm.
people explore different types of erotic expression, from playful to sensual to adventurous, and how to integrate them into relationships. And then she had one other one: are you ready to come out? An assessment quiz to help individuals gauge their emotional readiness and supportive factors in their life before deciding to come out to friends, family, and coworkers. And I think it's super interesting too, because everybody loves to take quizzes about themselves. Whether you're taking one for fun, haha. And I think of BuzzFeed, there's all kinds of quizzes on there. You're like, ooh, what house am I for Hogwarts? And figure that stuff out. But they sometimes you do take it seriously, and actually, I don't know if you knew this, you can actually go create a BuzzFeed quiz for free on
Mm.
on their site. Sometimes they'll decide to publish it for you, even if they think it's like remotely interesting or helpful. But I think that's something that could be really helpful, particularly if you're talking about. I like that you mentioned, part of your target audience, people who are exploring, or they're wondering, they're questioning.
Mhm.
I have people in my life who are going through that right now, where and the great part is, I mean, that's at any stage. You're giving them, and this kind of goes back to something that you made me think of when you mentioned how Liesl will create these environments for all of you to network, gives you a plan. It's giving to get, right? You're giving them
Mhm.
something that's actually useful, or meets them in a certain point in a moment that they need it.
Mhm.
They're going to remember that, and be like, right, I learned more about myself just now. Where did I get that? Was Phases of the Mind Therapy. That was Chelsea Newton. And it just
Mhm.
helps that stickiness, of remembering that you were a resource, because you are a resource for them. They just don't know it yet. And that it just all leads and creates that through line to say, she helped me a bit indirectly. She's probably going to help me. Now I know that she's probably going to help me if I go seek her out. So
Mhm.
thank you, Liesl, for those comments, because that is going to segue us into talking some more about like some ideas. And Elizabeth, you did a great job too, because you've already shared some things that could be tried and tested. And I want to get into that too. First of all, I do want to let's talk about video. Video, it can sound daunting, because I think it's really easy. Chelsea, you brought it up too. Production value. Oh, do we have to have like a whole studio? No. Obviously we're doing this on Riverside FM, which costs me $30 a month to be able, and I use it for a lot of things, including recording a podcast. But that's paying for something. There's, obviously you've got your, I think a lot of people can do so much and do so much just with their smartphones. Because you've got to,
Mhm.
that is like, people have shot movies with the cameras on your
Yeah.
A
smartphone.
smartphone and like a $15 lapel mic.
Yeah. Or even just I use my Beats Bluetooth headset. That's my mic I use on my
Yep.
TikToks. It's literally just that. Um I want to tackle this, and again, Elizabeth, you and I can kind of ping pong off each other a
Mhm.
little bit here. You mentioned, so there's a lot we could do with the things you already have in play. And Chelsea, we're going to get you the transcript of this too, so you're welcome to take notes, but you could just sit there and just receive
I
if you
just
like.
making a couple of notes because it's so interesting. So many of the things that you're saying are things that I have had in the works in my brain, right? Like
Mm,
every day during the school year, it's like I'm running with like a weighted stuffed animal sloth to my next third grader, but I'm thinking about like,
Yep.
oh yeah, like, oh, I should do like a am I bisexual quiz on my website. It's like it's crazy. My mind's everywhere. But anyway,
no,
keep
sure.
going.
So now, you are talking about SEO earlier, and I don't know if people are aware of this too. A lot has changed with
Mm.
how Google serves up search results in the last, I would just say, 6 to 9 months. Generative AI, has come into the picture. So what used to work is you would on your website have a lot of really great SEO, keyword rich content, blogs that are about, the exact target audience you're going after, so that when they type in their little search bar on Google, oh, I'm looking at, sex therapist for, questioning, queer questioning, or whatever, your Google would have indexed your site and would have said, oh my gosh, well, she's got some really good resources. Let's serve her link up somewhere in those search results. Ideally, you want to be higher on first page, because then it's like, ooh, that's one of the first three things that they might see. things have changed. Gen AI has figured in and been implemented onto Google search. Nowadays, it's not so much the organic links, it's not so much the blog articles or
Mm,
the landing pages or things like that,
mhm,
like a list of links. Now they are taking actually videos. So if you're answering a question in a video, that is
mm,
what's getting served up at the very top of those search results. Videos, infographics, just things that are a bit more interactive.
Mhm.
So I would say, you said you have a video on your YouTube. If I could make a suggestion, if their therapy here. But I would say I really like, and we did this together when we were first talking about you being on the show, your vibe check. I think that is
mm.
so important
Mhm.
because A, anybody in your target audience is going to get exactly what that means. Let's do a vibe check. Are we on the same page here? And
Do we
s-
vibe? Do you want to work
exactly,
with me?
Yep.
Do we
exactly
vibe? What's the vibe? Let's
right.
figure that out first before we commit to telling each other. No, I'm not telling them anything. telling me some of their most
Mm,
literally traumatic experiences. It's a
hmm.
big deal
Yeah,
to commit to therapy for
yeah.
trauma.
Well, and that's why I do think if we can get it worked into your schedule where your video on your YouTube channel is maybe your side of that vibe check, they can get a whiff of that before they even
Mm,
proceed. But if we're really talking about we need to get them to click to actually schedule that honest back and forth appointment with you to do the
mhm,
vibe check, give them the precursors to that.
mm,
But a lot of that can be done. And I look, I'm a huge fan of repurposing, especially when you have hardly any time. You could maybe once a week do a 60-second or less vertical video. And
mhm,
that's an Instagram reel, that's a YouTube short, and pop it on both of those channels, just those two.
mhm,
And that can be driving traffic. YouTube shorts, I cannot say enough about those. Those have
mm,
been massive. That's often how people, that is like 90% of the traffic I get to my YouTube channel, they're coming from YouTube shorts.
Hmm.
mm,
But it's huge. If you decide to go to TikTok, works the same over there. You literally could use the same vertical video on all three of those apps if you went that way. But I would say, yeah, capitalize on the fact that you convert once people talk to you. Once they have
absolutely.
that vibe check, you've got that person.
Mhm,
Let's give them a little, a precursor of what that feels like through video. Then they get that sense. It's almost like a pre-audition. I'll say a couple more things, but then I'll dive over to Elizabeth. I would say I know you can't ask for reviews by your clients, um, but they're and also with HIPAA restrictions, you cannot share their stories, their triumphs, their struggles, what they're accomplishing through therapy. They can. And so, yes, Elizabeth was picking up on that too. Um, so there again, knowing that you can't personally ask for that, but that you can say, don't review me, but that if there's any way to make it easier for and obviously this can be a very private topic for people to seek therapy about, but making it easier if they are getting to the point where they're like, I've achieved a certain milestone and it's because of therapy, and I can't say enough about Chelsea Newton or Phases of the Mind therapy, making it easier for them to maybe create that content and share, even if it doesn't have to be on public social. So many people are in communities these days that are private. Slack channels, Discord groups, Facebook groups,
mm.
even just text groups, which gross, group text. Oh my God, get away. But I can't get out once I'm in. But they are sharing in those. And so ways to encourage that would be really helpful. And then I totally agree with what Elizabeth already said about partnering, you know, capitalizing on everybody's time, if you're just hitting record, making sure you're in a Zoom or a Google Meet or something. Hey, y'all, let's record this. And I mean, people have put up podcasts and YouTube videos of just that. No production value else around it. What matters is the authentic content within it. I'm going to pause there. Elizabeth, I think you've been taking some notes too. So I want to toss it over to you.
Yeah, so I was thinking about the personal and the almost like not secretive in a bad way, but the secretive nature of who you tend to want to provide services to, people who are questioning, people who are
Mhm.
not out yet, maybe trans people who aren't sure about what their plans for their future are. So taking that into account, trying to focus on like social apps or getting in front of them that their families wouldn't see as likely. Like, so Facebook, like, chances are they'd have to be following you on Facebook, following you on Instagram.
Right.
Something like TikTok seems a little more personal and private, and that it's not as obvious, what who people are following. So I'm a proponent for TikTok, and I know that people see TikTok as a more like global national advertising apparatus, but I really don't think it is. You can make that
Mhm.
well known, and you can provide those same resources. You can do like a little like, hey, here's a little quiz for if you are questioning and you're not sure if you should come out. Something like that on TikTok would do crazy numbers, especially due to the topic. The topic is very interesting to people, and it's hitting the audience, that 20 to 35-year-old audience. That's who's on TikTok, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, like, I will tell you, as somebody on TikTok, it, again, like Rachel said, it doesn't need to be highly produced. Yes, some people on TikTok go way out of the thing. I literally sit and talk to my phone. That's all you need to do. Just sit there and talk to your phone. You can be in your fucking kitchen, right? Like, I think that, there's not a ton of expectation there,
Mhm.
but it might
Mhm.
get you a lot of eyeballs. And you're going to be getting maybe kids who are on there who are like, yeah, I've been feeling some way, I'm not quite sure. And I say kids, like, teenagers, early 20s, who are feeling some way, they don't want to admit it, and then you get served up into their For You page, their FYP, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's interesting. I think,
Mhm.
like, you don't even have to it's not a huge commitment. Like, it can be literally, again, I post on TikTok all the time, like, takes me a minute, like, if that, do a couple a week. That's like low stakes, kind of getting your name out there. Just make sure in your profile that you have all of your information, that it's like obvious that you're
Sure.
based in Colorado. But you could also, I think that's important. We talked about the podcast already. I think that would be really interesting, again, for the same reason that you'd be getting people who are like sitting in their car and they're feeling a certain way, and maybe they put on your podcast and their family isn't realizing it, nobody's having to hear it, nobody, and they just kind of like listen to it, and it's, you walking through either with yourself or you and a thought leader, like, this is kind of what we've experienced. And I think that's really easy. Again, same thing, it does not need to be super highly
Mhm.
produced. It can just be you talking to a microphone, and then, putting like a theme song at the beginning, throwing it out there. It's actually pretty easy. The other thing I was thinking of, because I know you work in schools, and I know a lot of the people who are like, especially if we're talking high schools, um a lot of the people in those areas are the ones who are questioning but don't want to like have to
Mhm.
say anything, maybe don't want to have this conversation. um you know Getting involved, this is more of a like local, contribution, where you end up going to the local schools, maybe the counselors at the local schools, and
Mhm.
letting them
Mm.
know about yourself. You might also already be doing this, but like you said, like the stickers with the QR codes, like getting it into the hands of the people who are about to go out into the world and are questioning, because
Mhm.
that's the age that we do that, where I'm not sure who I am. I'm 18 years old. I'm about to become like an adult, quote unquote.
Whatever
And
that
I don't,
means.
yeah, whatever that means. And, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing, which I feel like we've all felt. Um, and just trying to make sure they have that instance. Like, my daughter, attends therapy,
Mhm.
and I was put in contact with a practice that does therapy for kids, and realize that, oh, one of them is trans and focuses more on trans issues. And I've actually been in the conversation with myself, like, oh, should I put my kid with her at this point, or should I keep her with her original therapist? So,
Mhm.
like, just having schools having this knowledge that there is somebody at this practice, or for you, it's your practice, who focuses on these issues. Because I think sometimes what I've noticed, as with somebody who's in therapy and has a kid in therapy, the kid therapy, like the teenage therapy, seems to be like broad. It's like we deal with
Yeah.
kids and teens, not like kids and teens who are having like identity questions, which is like what I'm going through with my daughter, and
Yes.
she would totally like let me say that. So I think that's really cool to be, have that be made more obvious,
Mhm.
because a lot of parents, especially in like my generation, wouldn't know, like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure, like, do I just throw my kid in therapy? Do I, is there somebody who's specifically speaking to these topics? But yeah, I think like meeting the audience where they are, thinking about how the people you're talking to might not want it made very obvious that they're thinking about these things. I feel like in my head, I think that's TikTok. I think that's podcasts, and maybe, having a more, a stronger relationship with your local area
Mhm.
schools.
Yeah, and real quick, and I want to be mindful of time because I know I know we're coming up to the end. Just to wrap up a couple things. One thing I did want to ask really quick, are you able to take donations? Like if somebody wanted to fund someone's therapy, is that doable?
This is such a good question. So I also sit on the Denver Anti-Trafficking Alliance, which is like a
Ooh.
human sex trafficking alliance in Denver, in their mental health subcommittee. And just this week, I was with a lot of brilliant mental health providers who I've worked with in that group. And I'm like, the biggest challenge for our survivors of human trafficking is the wait lists for therapy and the costs. And I'm like, why don't I just make a therapy scholarship fund? And then when y'all victim advocates, I mean, these are people in the DA's office that I'm working with. Like, I have great connections. And I'm like, why don't you just call me and say, hey, I have somebody, because the window
Mm-hmm.
is very short,
Yeah.
maybe 48 hours. Like if somebody's ready to do therapy and then they're going to be on a wait list, forget it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, can I just make that? Can I just make a therapy scholarship fund so that when you guys have a great referral for me and I can do the complex trauma work of a survivor of sex trafficking,
Yeah.
that you can just send them to me and I just have a pool of money there that covers those sessions. So
Yeah.
it's something that I'm thinking about, like really in depth, and working with the DA's office actually on actively right now. Cause I'm like, the
Nice.
fact that we don't have that is bonkers.
See, I
And
think, and sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, again, I want to make sure because I know Chelsea, we need to get you going. But I think that'd be something. Even if you're having therapy sessions, you have clients who can pay, but that could be an option too to say, look, if you want to pay it forward,
Yeah.
put money into this because that could get the paid clients for you. You've got the clients that you're helping, even if they can't pay. But now you give maybe the opportunity to someone to say, well, I can't afford that, and so I'll give that to you, Elizabeth. Real quick, I'll let you say what you're going to say. Then
That's
we
what I was
wrap
going
up.
to say.
Okay, good. We're both in sync. So real quick, I think things you could start doing now, get like maybe one quiz on your website that can start passively being that lead generation. Just one. So it's there. I would say try to do like a weekly video. You then put to reels and to shorts, because that could actually be showing, driving people to your website by way of Google search, because that we know that people are doing that. And maybe the start next stuff too, recording your networking calls with your peer group.
So
Um,
easy.
and let's just plan on next June. I do agree with what Elizabeth said. Maybe June is a go hard marketing push,
Yeah.
for, when people are talking about pride and talking about sex and talking about all the things that we all need help with. Might be great. Any other last questions we can answer for you though before we release you back into the wild? And
No, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. And also, I think these are some great ideas. I think we could talk forever. And I do have to go because
yes,
I'm going to be officially back on the clock and going to a meeting at a high school with another amazing social worker who I coach. So, yeah, I just really appreciate you giving me all these ideas. Please do send me the transcript.
I will.
I want to know, the one thing I do really want to know is like, okay, so you're saying do it on TikTok Reels, YouTube Short. Like, what is the techie thing that helps me just get those out to 3 platforms at the same time? Like, what is the streamlined way to do that? Like, Planly calendar can do like on an Instagram and a Facebook, but like, is there a techie thing that exists that would just post for me TikTok, YouTube short, and reels or whatever?
There are social media platforms. I don't know of any free ones though. We can certainly research that too
I
and
would
find out.
pay. I would
Okay.
pay.
Okay.
I would
Great.
have no problem paying
Great.
if it makes my life easier
Yes, there should be
and saves me
some.
time.
I know, gosh, I use Agora Pulse. I know that one, but there should be like the posting to TikTok, posting to Reels, and posting to Shorts.
Yeah.
Shorts might be the wonky one that doesn't necessarily have API yet to those though. So
Okay.
that might be a
Does
manual
Hootsuite do
upload.
all of those?
I don't know. Hootsuite might, but their prices suck.
Yeah,
Yes, and
yeah, they
I
do.
said that on live stream, and I say it to their face.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I don't know anything
Well,
about it. It sounds controversial.
let's connect afterward.
Okay.
We'll be able to get you some, and you can start exploring
Great.
that. But
And
real
one
quick,
thing
everybody.
I want to
Yeah.
mention real quick is that National Coming Out Day is October 11th this year, so maybe
Yay.
Oh,
focus on that too.
might be
That
great
would
for
be
a
a big
first
one. Like that
video.
should be your big day. Like that should be your big marketing push day. Pride in June, great. National Coming Out
Yeah.
Day, October 11th, like every year. That should be like that's what you're focused on.
Okay.
Awesome advice. Everyone, Chelsea Newton, thank you for joining us. She can be found at phasesofthemindtherapy.com or email Chelsea, CHELSEA at phasesofthemindtherapy.com. Chelsea, we'll let you go. Elizabeth and I will stay on and close the show, but thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
today.
so much for having me. Take care.
Thank you. Woo. All right. Therapy. Woo. It's kind of wild being on this side of the couch. How I thought that went great.
I feel like I've been in my own therapy session.
I kind of do too. And
Yeah.
great ideas. I just want to give you a shout out. So you had some such great ideas. And again, you are the TikTok aficionado in this conversation, because I'm just like, I know you know the ways, and that is your zeitgeist.
I always want people to know I'm not always going to recommend TikTok.
But this made
It's
sense.
circumstantial. Like it doesn't
Yes.
always make sense for everybody.
It
So
certainly
I'll say
made
that.
sense today.
But given I know she has to work local or
Mhm.
within her state, but given the topic, that would be a killer just for
Yeah.
branding. Like, come on.
Well, and also being able to do location tagging on that too. I mean, obviously
Yes.
you can't restrict if you have a public audience and anybody from any state or country can see your stuff. But if you are able to just like, yes, but I'm in
Yeah.
Colorado and doing that. But I think that's hugely important.
And I think you made the good point about a lot of times people get bogged down in production values
Oh, yeah.
and they need to know that like nobody gives a shit about that on TikTok. Like, yeah, there are some like TikTok has the accounts where you're like, I'm here for the production, but for the most part, you're there for the person and the topic. You're not
That's
there
exactly
for
right.
the other shit that's going on in the background. Like, you know,
That's right.
I think that's important to know. And I think we all like tend to think that like I can't do it. It's going to take hours of my time. No, it can
Right.
take literally 3 minutes of your time.
Boop, hit record.
Even if you just hop on and you're like, did you know this about like coming out, National Coming Out Day? Like, that's
Yeah.
it. Just stare at it, talk at it, and then post. It's so easy.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we obviously could have gone way longer, but hopefully we got Chelsea some good takeaways. We were mindful of her time, and she was able to get some good stuff she walked away with. For the rest of you who are listening and watching, that is all we have for you in today's marketing therapy show. Today's guest will, as we mentioned, get a transcript of the discussion, so they have notes and takeaways they can put into practice as they scale up their marketing into the future. If you found this show to be helpful, entertaining, therapeutic, or any or all of the above, do us a favor and share the show. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social. We are at Just Trust Me podcast. Geez, I can't even think of what it is. I'm great at marketing. If you're interested in being a guest on our next live stream, you can email the show at justtrustme@butwaitthere'smore, MOORE.com, to tell us a bit more about yourself and the business you're trying to take to the market. Marketing Therapy is the live stream show of the Just Trust Me Marketing podcast, which is a proud member of the But Wait, There's More podcast network. Learn more about all of our podcasts and where to listen or watch. God, I can't talk anymore. Learn more about all of our podcasts and where to listen or watch at But Wait, There's More, MOORE.com. Elizabeth, where can our listeners and viewers find and follow you?
You can find me at Elizabeth Allen 1001 on LinkedIn, or you can find me at italicsllc.com.
there's more where this came from at her website. And she is more than happy to help any of you with any and all of your marketing needs. You can find out more about me. I already gave you my website that's very long and has my last name in it. If you want to do podcasting, I'm your girl. Thanks for joining, everyone. Pleasure, and appreciate you joining us on this first episode or first show of Marketing Therapy. Bye. Stop.